if you can't see the difference, I mean, my goodness, this is just a complete change. But that was the start of many. That was the first time. Jim and I, it was my brother. It wasn't like we were thinking we were doing anything other than helping my brother. Well, some things began to change inside of us. I don't know how many of you guys, if you're from the town of Salem, remember Bob LaRanger. Bob LaRanger was the human service director for 27 years in this town. He was a remarkable man. He was not religious at all. He didn't believe in God at all. But man, he taught us so much. When we first started to go, you know what, there's needs in this town, and we don't have a ton of resources, but we have some resources, maybe we can help. Maybe we can help. So we went to the human service director and we said, hey, we just want to help. What's going on in our town? Well, how can we help? And he said, you know what, in all my years, this is the first time somebody has asked me that question. He said, normally people come in and tell me what they're going to do. Hey, we're going to come in and do this. We're going to come in and do that. He said, this is the first time somebody actually asked me, what's the need? And that taught me something. Okay, there are people who know better than I do what's actually happening. And it's not all about my good ideas or what I want to try and accomplish. There's bigger things going on and people who've invested their life a lot longer than I have. And I know some of those people are sitting right in this room, people who have invested their life a lot longer than I have to helping people. And I respect you and I honor you and I want to hear what you have to say as well. But anyway, so we went to Bob LaRanger and we said, what's the need? Because our heart was just for people. Our heart was for the town of Salem. This is our home. This is where we're from. This is, the people that we care about. And he said, honestly, the biggest need right now is, this was in November, he said, Christmas is right around the corner. And right at about 11, 12, 13 years old, we just stopped having presents for kids in the Salem Christmas Fund. We just don't have anything to offer those kids. And it's such a vulnerable age that kids are beginning to realize, like, oh, maybe my family's poor. Oh, maybe there's something different about my family. He said, and it's so heartbreaking to see that in the midst of that transition of them beginning to have an older perspective about their home life, that at the same time, when there's lots of presents donated, big, bulky, it's easy to buy toys for toddlers. I mean, they're big, they're bright, they're bulky, and they're cheap. You get a little older and it's not the same way. If any of you have kids, you know that. There is a transition that takes place, and it's a lot harder to do these sort of things. So that's what he was saying, this is a need, this is a problem. So we said, all right, we're on it. So we started putting on a Christmas dinner. And we put on this Christmas dinner, we put it together in 3 weeks, where we began to fundraise for people to sponsor a table, businesses to sponsor a table. The people that were invited to the dinner were all the low-income families in the town, everybody who was on that Christmas list, so that they would actually be able to be the one to benefit from a fun dinner. And then free meals, all the food was donated in, raffle prizes, presents for everybody. And at the same time, we raised close to, it was like $3,500, $4,000 to go to presents for teens in the town. And that started something. We began to do that every year because it was a need that needed to be met. The reason I'm giving this context is because I want you to understand that, and for those of you who know us, you know this, but for those of you who don't, Jim and I aren't just like, oh, there's an opiate crisis that we can capitalize on right now. How can we make a name for ourselves on this? That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. The fact is that people matter to us. People really, really matter to us. And it doesn't matter who they are, their age, their size, their gender, their color. It doesn't matter. They matter as a person. And we've started, as we began to do these things and we began to meet people and hear their stories and like engage and go, wow, these are the people in our community. That love just began to grow. And so we were doing this. Let me just make sure. I gave myself little notes here just in case I forgot anything. I want to also say, so one thing that we learned from Bob LaRanger, he talked about this town a lot. He actually came over to our house on a couple occasions. And again, he was not a Christian. He was not religious at all. But he came over and he taught us what it meant to care for the poor, what a healthy community actually looks like. How it's not just pushing problems under the rug and pretending they don't exist and hoping that they're going to go away. A healthy community is one where people can actually identify those who are hurting and help them come back into being whole again, whatever that looks like. That's what it's about. And he had such frustration towards this town because he felt like there was always this push to get people who are of lower income out. We don't want that here. And he would fight against that. If you do a Google search on him, you will find so many resources that this man put in place to make it so that anybody could live here, even if they're in a tight spot, that they could still stay. They wouldn't have to lose their home because something bad happened, you know? Incredible man. And he taught us, and I feel like he deposited that part of his heart to us to begin to see things differently. So then, about 11 years ago, this was my first interaction with Mr. Garabedian. I saw his building, and I knew in my heart, I felt like God was speaking to me. And he said, that building is going to be used for great things in this town. And I said, yes, I will agree with that. And so what I did is I started writing to Mr. Garabedian, who I had never met before. And I started writing him and just said, you're going to give me your building. You're going to give me your building. And lives are going to be dramatically changed out of that building. Do you have any idea how many lives could be changed out of it? And I wrote him letter after letter, and I made sure it was handwritten so he'd appreciate it. You know, I went to lengths to get this to him. Well, he never responded. But we then got in these tractor trailer trucks full of goods and supplies for families in the town. Food, David, you remember this, right? Food and clothes and toiletries and just stuff. I mean, you can see the massive amount of boxes that would come in. We went through a roundabout way. Somebody who knew Paul Garabedian, could they get us the building so that we could use it just for that one event? And he said, yes, you can use it. So we went in, and he was there the first day and was kind of showing me around. And so, of course, I just said, do you have any idea how valuable this building is? This building is going to be used to change lives. It's going to be used to change lives. And he just looks at me and he goes, are you that lady that's been writing me all those letters? So yeah, I am. That's me. And I said, and you're going to give me this building because our town needs it. This was before the opiate crisis. This was before we were seeing drugs like going up the wazoo. I mean, they were there, they were around, obviously, but it wasn't like it is now, you know? This was just, the heart was like, that we could reach the needs in our community and help the community be healthy, that everybody's being taken care of, you know? So anyways, that started a relationship with Paul Garabedian, where every year we would get in another tractor trailer truck full of supplies. We would hand it out to all the pantries and all the lower income families in the town. We would surprise drop baskets and boxes off at different, Manor Motel and different places like that, and just blessing people. And every time I'd see Paul Garabedian, I said, when are you going to give me your building? When are you going to give me your building? When are you going to give me? And his response is always the same, Lydia, it's too big. It's too big a project. You will never be able to do it. It's too big. And I would say, you don't know how big my God is, though. I've seen him do crazy, amazing things. Like, just trust me. And he said, recently his son said, yeah, if God's giving out the millions of dollars like that, I want to know him. I said, is that it? Can we handshake on that? Because we'll have that conversation someday. So we were learning things as we were going. At the same time, what happened, my brother Noah lived with us. Then he moved out. And then a family friend who just had gone through a divorce and needed a safe place to live for a while and couldn't afford to pay rent anywhere. Of course we're going to help him. He's a family friend. You just bring him in. Then all of a sudden it's a friend of a friend. My sister's in New York. She meets this girl. No program will take her. Can she come and just be in a safe environment for a little while? I should have red flagged that no program will take her, but I didn't. I just didn't know what I was doing. And so I was like, yeah, if she needs help, sure, send her, right? And so here it starts to escalate, but we're still both working. By this time we have 4 children. We're doing life, we're helping the community, and we're not thinking about the fact that people are coming in and out of our house. That's just kind of, it feels normal to me, maybe not to Jim. It felt normal to me, being from a big family, right? So pretty soon, time goes on. Oh, what's happening? Oh. And we've had almost 150 people in and out of our home. And we didn't even fully realize what was happening until about 2 years ago when the woman from the town said to me, Lydia, we think you're like the only shelter left in Salem. I was like, shelter? It's just my house. Like, what are you talking about? We're not a shelter. And I went home and I told Jim that, and we laughed about it. And then all of a sudden we were like, whoa, we have been a shelter. Wait a minute, let's start to count. This is not everybody, and not everybody that has come to our home has dealt with addiction. That's not the point. The point is where there's a need, is anybody going to care? Not everybody has somebody to support them. Not everybody has a family. Not everybody has somebody who cares. And if we can't realize that, then we're just putting blinders on to see what we want to see. And that's not okay to do. So word of mouth spread. I was getting phone calls. I think like this past summer, somebody said to me, oh, this woman who came in, she said, oh, I've been thinking about coming here for about a year. You've been thinking about coming to my house for about a year? Who are you? She's like, oh, we all know about you. We all know about you. 2013 is, I think, when the turning point was for us. Before that, it was just a lot of single moms. It was a lot of people just in financial difficulty, in difficult situations, things like that. And then 2013, in comes Melissa and Matt. And Melissa, both are addicted to heroin. And Melissa's pregnant with their son, Michael. That's Melissa right there. And that's Michael. And I mean, if you could see Melissa before, I should have thrown up a before picture because you guys would just not even think it's the same person. But she had been living in a mattress hut. And they had found mattresses around Lawrence and just made a little house in the snow with them. And she was pregnant and addicted to heroin and wound up at our house. And I wasn't familiar with heroin addiction at that point in time. I just could tell something was wrong. My brother Noah came in and said, Lydia, look at their eyes. And he gave me a nice good lesson on this is some things that we got to look out for here, okay? All right, began to do my research and find this out. Well, Melissa, we got her on methadone because she was pregnant. She couldn't get off of stuff or the baby could potentially die. And she ended up having Michael, and within a month, she was ready to head back to the streets again with Matt. And she put Michael in the stroller and was walking down our road to walk to Lawrence. It was October, November, it was freezing out. And I said, what are you doing? She was so addicted to her relationship that she was in, and I'm sure fiending for stuff, you know? And it was causing her to think about leaving her child. Now, the Melissa today, if you could see her as a mom, that would be like, that moment in her life is a moment that she gets sick to her stomach when she thinks about the fact that she was ever thinking like that. She says, it was like a bad dream. I can't even believe that I was like that. But I'll tell you, everybody had given up on Melissa. Her parents are excellent parents. They're great people. But Melissa had burnt that bridge actually multiple times. Like they went the distance, years with her. And finally they said, Lydia, good luck, but nothing's going to change. We've done this. So Melissa's starting to leave, and I say, you're not taking that baby. You do what you're going to do. You're not taking that baby. So she leaves the baby at my house and goes, I was not supposed to have more kids. The plan was I could only handle 4. Well, now we got a newborn baby, and he was born addicted, and so there's things that come along with that, and that's okay. He's a beautiful little boy. But we would continue to go and find Melissa and Matt, and we would pick them up for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, bring them over, give them a shower, show them that they're human beings and they're worthy of love, they matter, they have a child, they have something to live for. And months went by. We ended up getting guardianship of Michael so that he wouldn't go into state custody, so that they would still have a chance to be able to get their son back the moment they realized what was going on. And it happened. January 1st. Where's Scott? Is Scott around? He was around. Scott's here somewhere. Anyway, Scott goes out. He's awesome. He goes out and he just buys people coffees and tells them that their life matters. He goes out and just hands out, your life matters. It's more than this, more than this. Well, he happens to be out and sees Melissa and tells her this. Says, you want to get some help? I can get some help for you. And Melissa says, well, I was living at a place where they were helping me. He gets her into a detox, and she calls me and she says, can I come back? I'm ready now. I'm done with this. Can I come back? So, of course. Yes, you can come back. Let's do this. So Melissa comes back. Long story short, over a process of 2.5 years, she just becomes who she actually is. I can't say she becomes a new person. I feel like the old person wasn't her. It just wasn't her. It was her mind warped and sick by the stuff that had been put in there, Now she's really Melissa, and she was able to get her son back. We were able to go to court. We threw a party at the courthouse. The judge came down with tears in his eyes, all happy and excited, saying, we don't see this sort of stuff. This is awesome. She's now, since then, gotten married to another man who came through our house. Different issues, but still came out on the other side whole. Both are working, have great jobs. Michael's happy, healthy, in school. God is doing incredible things. They have a home. They're doing well. And that's what God does. That's what he does. Melissa would not ever say that she's an addict in recovery. She's recovered.
That's right.
That's done.
That's right.
She's recovered. What we see with program after program is that people aren't walking out of those places recovered. They're walking out of those places saying, I'm still an addict, and I'm just gritting my teeth to get through the rest of my life to hopefully not fall on this again. And what kind of hope is there in that existence? Man, I wouldn't want to do it. I would not want to do that. To feel the hopelessness that I will always struggle with this for the rest of my life, and I'm just going to try. That's hopeless. We're able to offer people hope. So 2013, Melissa comes in, everything begins to change, and from that point on, almost every single person who comes to our door is addicted to heroin. And we're like, what is happening in our community? What is happening in our area? Why is everybody who's coming here addicted to this drug, to opiates now? What is going on? And we begin to, obviously, I'm sure you all know, we see it in the news. The death toll is getting higher and higher. And the government's trying to figure out, how are we going to figure out this problem? How are we going to figure out this problem? In the meantime, we're just serving the people in our community. We got people coming into our home. We don't even realize what we're doing. And then all of a sudden we realize what we're doing. And that's where we are today. All of a sudden we get, let's see, I don't want to jump ahead of myself. I see Paul Garabedian. Apparently we were making a reputation for ourselves that we care for people, because people were considering coming to our house for years. Okay. And the church knew. We would get people saying, hey, Lydia, I'm from such and such a church. We had somebody show up here. Can you take them? You get a whole church. Okay. All right. The word's out there. People are looking for help. Nobody knows what to do. Had the human service office call. Lydia, I got somebody here. Can you help them? Yeah, of course we're going to help. We're going to help. December of 2017, I see Mr. Garabedian at the market basket. And he waves at me. So that's my cue. That's like my in. I'm going to beeline over to him like he's waving. I've been hovering around and waiting for him to wave at me for a little while now. And I see him. So I'm like, hey! When are you going to give me your building? He said, and he introduced me to the person that he was with, and he began to speak. This is Lydia. She takes people into her home. She helps so many people in this community. It's really remarkable work that she's doing, and I'm thinking, wow, where'd you hear that? That's awesome. Word is traveling. And he's happy about it, you know? I said, right, when are you going to give me your building so I can use it to actually reach the people in this town? You are like, your family is a name in this town. You've been here for forever. You owe it to the town to leave a legacy. And he told me back 13 years ago, and this was his first mistake, he told me that his father had allowed some homeless people to stay there at one point in time during the winter because they had nowhere to go. And I was like, there's generosity in your family. Yes. And then you let me use your building, so you're generous too, and you're going to do this. And he just would, laugh at me. And this conversation in Market Basket is happening. And I say, okay. And he starts off the same way he always starts off. Lydia, it's too big a project. It's too big. You're not going to be able to do it. And then all of a sudden he stops. And he goes, you know what? Here's my cell phone number. I have lots of buildings. I don't think you need something that big. I can show you around what I got. And I said, yeah, okay, it's going to be that building, but okay, we'll do this. We'll do this. So he gives me his cell phone number, and he says, when you want to meet, we'll talk about. And I walk away just kind of like, was that a dream? Like, how did that happen? And then I sat on that phone number for a time because I just felt like it wasn't time yet. It wasn't time yet. God was still doing some things in our life. He was still doing some things in the community. And I am a big timing person. I'm not going to rush and jump in on something if it's not time, and I'm also not going to hold back if it is time. I'm just going to be in the moment that I'm supposed to be in, and I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to do it well. I'm going to do what God is putting in front of me. I'm just going to do it. Whether people agree or don't agree, that's all sidelined for me. I've been given a mission, and I've come to realize we were made for this. I didn't know that. I didn't know that we were made for this, but we were made for this. And I see it now. And so he says to me, let's do this. Let me see here. So there's the building. I can't tell you how many times I've gone by that building and just been like, oh, God, when? It's empty for so long. God, when? When can we use that for something that's actually going to be good? It's just empty. So I already went through what I had for notes for this. He was willing to have the conversation. So I ended up calling him October. I felt like, okay, it was go time. October of last year, I felt like God was saying to me, you know what, write a proposal and get it to Garabedian today. So I'm like, okay. So I sat down at my computer first thing in the morning. I typed up this proposal that is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. and I put it on a USB drive. We had also, back in December of that year and this is part of the other thing with timing, back in December of that year, we got a phone call from Time Magazine, and I thought they were selling us a subscription. And they said, no, we heard about your house. And I'm like, what? Like, we didn't even know about our house till about 6 months ago. Like, what do you mean you heard about our house? And they had heard about our house, and they were doing a major addition on the opiate crisis across the United States. And they wanted to see what we were doing different, because there was hope in our story. And they weren't seeing hope. They'd been traveling all around the country, and they weren't seeing hope anywhere. You can go check out the edition. It's kind of very sad. And then they have Jen's picture as the last page, giving birth to Braley, Jen, who was living in our home, giving birth to Braley and saying, you know, there's hope. There's hope. And then they made a video of our home. And as they were there, they said, wow, there's a lot more going on here than what we realized. Like, we were just doing this one edition, but there's something happening here. Can we follow your family? Can we just keep coming? It's like, if you want. I don't find us that interesting. But maybe we are. Maybe we are. So they've been coming every month to just film and video and see what's happening. Why are people's lives changing? What's different about this? How are people actually recovered instead of constantly being in recovery? So that was happening. So that happened, and I go and I bring this proposal to Garabedian, and I'm just going to show you exactly what the proposal looked like. So you know. Can you read it? Oh, it's kind of small. I thought it would be bigger on the screen. I'm sorry. So I'll just run through it, okay? This is legit the proposal, okay? The first 2 pages, and then there's 2 more pages that I'll show you as well. I'll tell you what it says. It's now changed, but I wanted to just show you what was initially put forward, okay? So this was the idea. The proposal was a 5 to 10 year plan. Based on an agreement to allow Jim and Lydia and their church, the Believers Meeting, to obtain the full use of that property rent-free for 5 to 10 years, depending on an initial assessment of how much rehabilitation is needed to make the building usable. During that 5 to 10 years, this is what we would do. We would bring the building up to code and make it rentable for future use or sale after the agreement period is ended. We'll be utilizing the building to combat the growing opiate crisis in our town and state through the implementation of a 3-phase program of addressing and promoting transformation in the physical, mental, and spiritual areas of each one who would attend. We will put signage up using the Garabedian name, the Garabedian Workshop, to promote the community values of the Garabedian family and business. As a nonprofit, we would provide Garabedian properties with the appropriate tax deduction for the use of the building for each year. We would cover all utility expenses incurred during our time there. And we are currently being covered by Time Magazine for the work we're doing. If desired, we would certainly be mentioning your name and the philanthropic efforts being made to allow a greater legacy, because this is how I talk to him all the time, allow a greater legacy established by the Garabedian family in the town of Salem. But also as leaders in the country for local businesses that are making strides to combat the opiate crisis. Tell them they have an opportunity to be a model for businesses everywhere, to stand up and make a difference. And then, this is the steps we would take upon agreement. We would obtain rental insurance, transfer all utilities into the Believers Meeting name. We'd gather a prayer team to begin to pray over the property and all its logistics. We'd meet with the town manager to express our intentions with the building and seek their input, so to promote cooperation and collaboration. We'd gather local contractors, make an initial assessment of all the work needing to be done to make the building usable and up to code. We'd create the blueprint for divided use of the building and submit to Garabedian Properties for final approval. We'd put together a proposal to all area churches and community groups that have expressed to us their willingness to participate. I am the spokesperson in the state of New Hampshire for the New Hampshire Alliance Recovery Coalition, which is now the Good Samaritan Network, which is connected to every church in the state, as well as the governor's office and national opiate awareness groups. These connections will allow for the building rehab to be completed readily. We'd compile a list of licensed area contractors willing to do the work and submit to Garabedian Properties for final approval, and then we would begin the work. Because we would like to maintain and promote the historical significance of the building, we will be working to keep the outside of the building as visually close to its original design. Solidify all operational aspects so that they're ready to begin upon completion of necessary work, begin the implementation of the operational plan. Long story short, we do the work to get it up to code. You give it to us for free for a certain amount of time. Now that we see how much work needs to be done, we're probably going to be asking for a little more than 5 to 10 years. And that's okay. He let us do our walkthrough last Saturday. We walked through with an architectural engineer, a couple tradesmen, and myself and Mr. Garabedian. And I just was like, ooh, googly-eyed the whole time, like, we're in. This is amazing, we're here. The contractors were not so googly-eyed. They're like,
Yeah.
look at all this work that's going to have to be done. But that's okay. It's okay. So anyways, that is the plan. So what it's come down to now, because he said, well, we can't start the agreement unless we know, like he said to me all along, he thinks it's too big, unless we know that you have what it takes to actually complete your end of it. We don't want you to start a process that you can't finish, and then we'll be stuck in an agreement with you that doesn't benefit anybody. And I get it. That is a completely smart thing to say, you know. I know that there's been talk about the Garabedian family being stingy. My only experience with them has been generosity. It's only been willingness to help. Maybe not give me their building, but to help, you know. And so I don't see any of these things from them as like a mean thing. It all makes sense to me. I get it, you know. And so what we came down to was to say, all right, listen, this is what we'll do. We'll do the walkthrough. We'll come up with a blueprint of what we want to do through the usage of the building, what it would look like. You give us a list of all the things that need to be brought up to code and the things that you want done. They want their parking lot done. Like different things like that aren't necessarily, I don't know if they're code, but whatever. They're in there. And we're going to compile a list, and then we're going to find the contractors and the people that are willing to do that, or the resources that are willing to pour into it, because this is something that's going to make this community incredible. Florence, it's just in Manchester. Guess what? That is not true. Right. That is not true. It is right here. I've had classmates die from opiates. My siblings have had classmates die from opiates. There are kids presently in the high school who are addicted to opiates. And I would be willing to venture a guess that there are kids in the middle school as well. And if it's not opiates yet, it's on a fast track to get there, because we're just pretending it's not happening. And we don't know what to do with it. So we just kind of have stern talks about it. We're not really fixing the issue. So this is going to provide a way for us to actually come in and address the issue. So I'm going to show you what the plan is going to be for the building. Jim's going to kind of give, after all of this, he's going to kind of give what they're looking for construction-wise, and we're going to have whoever's more in that vein of things, like I want to be a part of it in that way, you go talk to Jim. If you're more in the place of like, I want to volunteer to help, you talk to me, and we'll plan that, okay? We'll get this divided up. It's an incredible opportunity for us to reach people who would never, they come to my door, but would never go to people's doors. They wouldn't go to the door of a church. They wouldn't even walk in. They'd think the thing would burn down, right? I've heard that a million times. I can't go to church. That place will burn down. It's the line. So we're creating a safe place that's in between for the people who say, I have a heart to see this stop. I have a heart to see this lives actually be changed, so that they're back up and running again, so they're a productive member of society again, so that they've got something to offer, so that they are who they really are, and they no longer have to look at all their mistakes and wallow in that misery. They're able to be who they were made to be. So we're moving on to how it would work. This is the operational plan. We talk about body, soul, and spirit. This is one thing that we have learned through having all of these people in our house. We have a very specific schedule in our house. It's not free for all, for any of you who wonder how crazy our house must be. It's crazy, but it's structured crazy. It's very, very orderly. It's very organized in what we do. And this is what we've learned, is that it's not about just sobriety. It's not about just getting healthy in one area. It's not about just working out emotional issues. And it's not about just telling people about Jesus or spiritual things. It is about getting healthy in all three of these areas. All right? And when I talk about the soul or the mental piece of it all, I'm not just talking about mental health, that's part of it. I'm talking about job skills. I'm talking about the stuff you do in day to day, how to be a better parent, you know, how to pay your bills, how to work on your car, you know, just skills, like just in terms of being a person who can do stuff, right? So anyways, this is what we would do. We would have, I thought I had these on the same, I'm going to go forward to this. So this is the logistics. The facility would be a day center. It would be open from 9 to 5. That's kind of what we're thinking, okay? But the building would be divided into 3 different sections for the implementation of the phases for each aspect. So there's a body, a soul, and a spiritual aspect. And then there's 3 phases to each of those. And we'll go back to the prior picture in just a minute. What would happen is, so that within those sections, there would be a clothing closet, a centralized food pantry, child care for those with small children who would be participating. There would also be a section for office space and a centralized safe hangout space for people. Each participant will start with an assessment. I have it completed with the volunteer director. It's actually going to be, we're going to have an intake coordinator and a team with them. And what they do is as somebody comes in, that's first step. They meet with the intake coordinator and their team, and they find out who they are. They hear their life story. What's going on? Where are you coming from? What are your goals? What do you hope for? What are you wanting to see accomplished? Because even people stuck in the lowest of places, deep inside of them, they're like, it might be impossible, but I'd really like to go back to school. Let's put that down as a goal. And you begin to put things in people's reach that they never really thought, but it's still there, this like buried hope that life could be something for them, you know? And so the intake coordinator would do that. They would find out where this person is at. Say the person's physically very healthy, but can't maintain a job because they have a bad attitude problem, or they don't know how to manage their finances, so every time they get a place to live, they lose it because they're not paying their bills, something like that. Well, then for physical, they might start in phase 3 because they're fine physically. But for soul, they might have to start at phase 1 to learn some of these skills so that they can do better in their life. They can actually accomplish what they're looking to accomplish. Then spiritual. So again, all of this is back on the other page. I'll bring it back to that. But so they'll have an assessment done, and the intake coordinator will meet with the volunteer director. The volunteer director is the one who's going to be training all participants, all volunteers, in what it looks like to be a volunteer. Because what a volunteer is going to do is when somebody comes in, they do their intake. The volunteers come in and they've done their kind of intake with the volunteer director. They've done their training. And then they're going to get paired up 1-to-1. One person to one person. One volunteer to one person starting their journey. Okay? That person is actually going to go with them wherever they go. They're going to be best buddies, all right? And they're going to come up with a plan. Where are we starting you? What phase for what aspect are you at? And what are the classes and the things that you're going to go through to get you where you want to be? To where you're no longer feeling like you just can't swim. You just can't make it. You're always under the water. Now you feel like you're on top. That's where we're going to get you. So each participant will start with an aspect. They will be then assigned to a volunteer who will walk with them through their process. The operations director oversees and directs all planning and implementation procedures. We need directors. Aspect directors will form an advisory board and work with all phase directors, the people under them, for their particular aspect. All phase directors are responsible for compiling and organizing the classes, the teachers and activities for their aspect and phase. And the volunteer trainers are responsible for the background checks, training, and overseeing of all volunteers. This is not going to be a place where people are going to want to come if they don't want to get better. All right? This isn't going to be like a hangout place for people who are wanting to do drugs. They're going to want to stay away from this place because they might get sucked into something better while they're here. This is not going to draw people who are looking to screw up. This is going to be an offer to those who are saying, maybe this is my chance. Maybe this is my chance. Like I don't know how I'm going to do it, but maybe. And we'll have tons of people who have already kind of gone through this in our home. Countless people who will be volunteering there and saying, listen, I did it. Want to see my before and after? I remember Melissa, once she was recovered, she went around to every area police department and got her mug shots. And man, we cried laughing because, oh my goodness, what the heck, right? She was so different. And we have to say, look, this is what it was before, and everybody had given up. If I can do this, you can do this. If it's possible for one, it's possible for another. The reason we're focusing on the opiate crisis is because it's here, it's at our feet. But that's not what this is all about. This is all about introducing people to the idea that they were made for something more and that they don't have to struggle the rest of their life.
Yes.
Wherever they're at. Wherever they're at. The first half of our taking people in had nothing to do with drugs. It had to do with people in tough situations. This isn't about, let's do a drug rehab. I am so not about drug rehabs, okay? A lot of people who've come into our house are like, yeah, I've been to 17 programs so far. That was a literal statement. 17? And none of them worked? Nope. And they're still trying. That's amazing. It means that there's still some hope there, even though, I mean, come on. We're going to help people actually do this in a way that makes sense, step by step by step, by people who actually care and can look past their brokenness and go, man, I can see you in there. I can see you, and you matter. It blows people away. They don't know how to think like that. So I'm going to go back to the previous page.
Lydia, we just had a 13-year-old girl who wrote a suicide note to her parents this week. She would fit in this, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a different situation.
Yeah.
It's a product of bullying
Yeah.
in schools, which is
Yeah.
really very scary.
It is very scary. And it would, again, be partnered up just with a particular mentor, particular volunteer who would just be by their side.
You'd find out in the assessment.
Yeah, it would find somebody tailored specifically to the person coming in based on what their story is, because everybody's different. You can't, that is another thing that we've learned. You can't just say this is going to be how it is for everybody, because not everybody's the same. Everybody's actually very, very different, right? I had my first kid, awesome. I had my second kid and I was like, what the? You look so different. I was expecting the same looking baby to come out. You look so dramatically different. And then their personalities, I really remember sitting there looking at her going, oh. And then my third child came out and I was like, and you're different too. People are made so unique. And then my son was definitely different. He was a boy. So 3 girls and then a boy. Yeah. They're all very different. So we're going to have a question and answer at the end. All right. Thank you. So this is what it would look like. And this was just a rough thing because this is what I was sending out to Garabedian day 1, for this. Phase 1 for body. If you're coming in addicted, if you've got unhealthy eating and exercise habits, if you're on treatment or you have no primary or care or dental care, we're going to start you in phase 1 and we'll get those things squared away for you. Phase 2, you move into it. We're going to implement taper down plans to completion. We are not going to be a clinic. We are not going to be administering any medications. It's not about that. There's plenty of facilities out there and around that do that stuff. We will help you contact your clinic to come down in a way that makes sense to do a down dosing, and we would walk you through that. The basic knowledge of a healthy lifestyle is now being implemented in your life, and you are up to date with medical and dental visits. Then phase 3 is when you're off all substances, including methadone. You're eating healthy, exercising regularly, maintaining proper hygiene. You have a working knowledge of your protective health and communicable diseases. All right, understand how your body works. That's another thing. Nobody knows how their body works. I won't go there. Then we got the soul, phase 1. If you got mental health issues, the lack of job, skill, or ability. You don't, outstanding legal issues, emotional trauma, you're lacking a diploma or a GED, you don't have a license, and you're over, you're older than that. Phase 2, implementing a plan to clear up those legal issues. Somebody who's going to go to court with you. Somebody's going to help you walk through that process and make sure you're actually doing it the way you're supposed to be doing it. I feel like I've gone to court more than most lawyers at this point, helping you get all this stuff, developing new job and computer skills or trade skills, okay? And phase 3, by the time you're ready to go, you're going to be able to hold down a job. You're going to be cleared legally. We're going to have an office there that's going to help you place you in a job, okay? You have your license. You're emotionally healthy. You're pursuing continued education, ready to find housing, relationally healthy, and able to communicate well. So all fall under that. This isn't all about drug addiction. That's one piece, okay? And then the spirit. You have no knowledge of God. You're angry or blaming God for pain. You're searching for significance in material, physical things or people. You're looking for your own value in others or in stuff, right? That's what that means. Phase 2, understanding one's spirituality, relationship with God, able to identify the truth over lies, and being able to forgive. These are all things that are so important. And then phase 3, having confidence in your identity, being wholly satisfied, and working to restore healthy relationships, and also being able to help others. That's the final product as people finish through. And that's what we really believe is going to take place, and it will happen with the help of everybody, anybody who has something to offer, okay? When people come in for the program, they're going to come in and there's going to be some lockers there. And they're going to have to put their cell phone and anything they got in their pockets and any stuff in a locker for the day. Because the classes and the things that they're doing is going to be so hands-on, so interactive, so whatever, they're not going to be engaging in that way. So there's not going to be any sort of way to bring in outside influences or plan to make deals. That's just not going to happen. Anybody who's wanting to sneak a deal somewhere is going to do it at the mall. Take a drive over to the mall, okay? Tell me how many needles you see on the ground. It's terrible. My hope is that will no longer be an issue within a year of this happening. That's what my hope is. So it's not going to be a dangerous place. Nobody's going to be unsupervised. It's not going to be people just wandering around like hanging out with each other and staying in their old patterns. This is not for people who don't want to get well. This is for people who do want to get well. And we're saying we're giving you a chance. We're going to give you a chance because you matter. You matter, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to take some work, and you're going to get wicked angry at me. For all the people that have lived in my house, probably every single one of them have hated me badly at one point or another. They've told me, right? We laugh about it now sometimes. But but that's where we're looking. It's I can't stress it enough. It is not about just drugs. There are other things that we've talked about doing in the final phases of this as people are learning job skills or whatever. We're wanting to bring in some of our veterans in the town, people who understand the value of life. They fought for our country. They understand the value of freedom and the ability to make choices and all of these things, being able to work one-on-one with people who have come through and be able to teach them what they know, their job skills. And you know what this does is this brings together very separated parts of the community. Right now, our community is separated. I mean, nobody's engaging or interacting in this way. That's going to happen here. There's going to be this coming together because a healthy community is one where everybody is working together and everybody is seeing value in one another. That's what it is. And that's what we're going to do. So our next step, let's see, let me just make sure. Oh, I had a blank slide there. Okay. Our next step is we're going to be holding 2 separate meetings. Jim's going to hold a meeting for people that are interested in the construction, the building end of things, helping market for that, finding companies that would be willing to give resources, everything. He's going to talk about that a little bit more so you have a better idea. And then I'm going to form a meeting for the people who are wanting to be part of the operational plan. People who say, I can be a volunteer, I'll be a director of this, I'm good at this sort of thing, I'll be the intake ward, whatever. Like, we'll just start forming this thing and reaching out and finding people to fill this plan. So after the question and answer time, there's 2 sign-up sheets. Where are the sign-up sheets? I see one clipboard right there. Okay, so there's 2 of them. One says operational, one says construction. Hopefully y'all can read. So just put your name down on the one, or if you want to be part of both, put your name down on both with either an email address or a phone number that you can get a text at. And because we'll have 2 messages going out, through email or through text. You take your pick, which one's better for you, and we're going to plan those 2 meetings. Meet with Jim if you do the construction, meet with me for operational, and we are going to put a date on the calendar today for when that next meeting will be. And then any information will be passed along through email or text, okay? All right. Why don't you come up and talk about what you saw in that building when my heart was just in love?